فاتحة. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. الحمد لله رب العالمين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله تعالى في كتابه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم: ولنبلونكم بشيء من الخوف وجوع ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات وبشر الصابرين الذين إذا أصابتهم مصيبة فقالوا إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. صدق الله العلي العظيم. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad. And your loudest of salawat as condolences to the master of our time, Sahibul Asri wal Zaman. Our topic in our discussion is around the application of faith in today's life. And how do we bring into practice some of the concepts that we hold dear to our heart and we believe is a core concept or principle of our faith. In these verses of Surah Baqarah, which are well known to all of us, Allah is telling us, He says that I will test you with something. شَيْءٍ مِّنَ الْخَوْفِ وَجُوعٍ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الْأَمْوَالِ وَأَنفُسِ وَالثَّمَرَاتِ وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. He's telling you that I am going to test you with something that will come from fear, something that will come from hunger, something that will come from loss of wealth, something that will come from the loss of yourselves or from yourselves and from your fruits. And give glad tidings to those who are patient. When we take a look at the purpose of life and we take a look at what we're doing here, we take a look at this idea of an examination that Allah is placing upon us, and we want to break down what is this examination? How is this examination manifested to us? Then we want to understand how to put these examinations into perspective. Then how to cope with and pass these examinations. And finally, what is the result of this examination? What's the benefit? What's the guarantee that we have that this examination is good for us? When we start by first taking a look at these categories that Allah is telling you that I will test you through all of these various subjects, when you take a look at the trials and tribulations of day-to-day life, we see that Allah has addressed them. That's certainly every aspect of difficulty. Whether you take a look at it from fear, when we look around the world and we look even in our own country, sometimes we recognize that there is a fear that we have from persecution, from the lack of security, whether that's general or specific. The general being sometimes the attack of a terrorist, or from the lack of security from other aspects of theft, or from the other attacks of an unknown person who wants to rob you or harm you or do some evil deed to you. There's fear that's there, that's available, that can come in many different formats, whether that's fear that's associated with our income, with our families, our children, but there is some aspect of fear of security. The second he mentions with hunger, whether this isn't, we interpret this in the structure of poverty, that there will be times where we don't have enough money to buy enough food for ourselves, whether it's through different examinations, whether it's through different situations that we may have the means and resources. And it happens sometimes. A person is not short of wealth. Wealth is not the problem. I have plenty of wealth. But my circumstance is such that I can't take care of myself. That in some aspect, my hunger, my inability to satisfy my need at a particular time is due to circumstance. Sometimes it's associated with wealth. Sometimes it's associated with other characteristics. But Allah is telling you, however you want to take a look at it, this hunger is something that I can test you with. It is something that should I choose, and I will bring upon you examinations through this as well too. And from the loss of wealth, that at times you will think that your affairs are in your control. You have authority over your situation, especially in the Western world. We take a look at the Western world, we take a look at our societies, we live in these cosmopolitan environments where we believe the only restriction is that I should want something and I can attain it. If I have enough money, there's no question about it. The shops are open 24/7. Whatever I want, my restriction is only this, that my desire should be there. But Allah is telling you that no, I can take that away from you. I can test you through this means as well too, that I will take away this wealth that gives you the confidence that makes you believe that your affairs are in your hand, to show you that your affairs are not in your hand, to show you that I am the one who is in control. This wealth is of no good to you if I do not give you the permission to spend it or to use it. It can be taken away from you in a moment. And he continues, and from the losses of yourselves. Sometimes that loss from ourselves is a sickness that comes to us. Sometimes it's a condition that comes to us. Sometimes it's a physically apparent. We see a healthy person walking around and all of a sudden he's sick. And we can see that sickness. Other times we can't even see the sickness. When we talk about diseases of the spirit or we talk about diseases of the mind, these are things that the person looks healthy walking next to you, but truly internally they're going through a very severe condition. And then there are other health conditions that Allah says, I will test you of yourselves. I can take from you whichever way I choose. And the final test that he mentions, وَالثَّمَرَاتِ, and from your fruits. Our Mufassirin have explained to us, the ulama have taught us that in this Allah is referencing, one of the references is your children, your offspring. Allah will test you through them as well too. Any aspect we want to take a look at of our society, of our community, of what is valuable to us, of what we hold dear to ourselves, Allah is telling you it's fair game. Now, as we want to break down and understand that, okay, if I'm going to go through these challenges and my perspective, what does my perspective need to be on these challenges? First, let's understand where these items can come from and how they manifest. Then let's take a look at perspective to understand how do we approach these ideas that we're going through this and then how to cope with them. When we want to talk about the manifestation of these examinations, it's not always something that falls from heaven upon you. That, for example, you're walking down the street and boom, something hit you in the head and there you go, there's the test from Allah. Or that there's, like how you go down the road, there's warning hazards coming up. There's a bend coming up or there's a bump coming up. There's no warning sign that tells you that at this location, at this time, in this condition, Allah will take an examination from you, or that this is your examination. Many times what happens is we enter into a state of difficulty as we're going through our day-to-day processes in life. And until we've almost finished the situation or we've finished the condition that we're in, we recognize, you know what? That was Allah putting me in a test. That was Allah taking a test from me. Our goal is to be aware of them by acknowledging from the different facets and manifestations that these examinations can come. The first is that affects a majority of people, or that is something that hits a complete society or community. Whether that be through a natural disaster, like we're seeing in America across the pond, right? These hurricanes that are coming, and they're destroying infrastructure, they're destroying houses, they're destroying people's livelihood, and it's doing it in one shot. Whether we take a look at the tsunamis that hit various areas, whether we take a look at volcanic eruptions, whether we take a look at all of these different ways of natural disasters that can happen, or those calamities that affect a large group of people. For example, an explosion. For example, a terrorist attack. All of these are ways in which we can see an examination that is manifested through us through these processes. Now, what happens is sometimes we take these items personally. We say, oh, why did it have to happen to me? And especially when it comes to natural disasters, there's this concept that people have that first they say there is no God. And then they say, if there is a God, why did he make this action happen and so many people were hurt? Why did Allah let this item happen? Now, some of the philosophers, when they want to break down this idea of explaining how this works, they say that first off, to say that Allah performed an evil action is impossible. It's not possible. Allah can't perform evil actions. Allah is not evil. And there's a number of analyses around the statement. But they say, let's look at it in perspective that truly what the problem in the situation is that there exists items in this world that are not compatible with me. That when they come in contact with me, there is conflict. The item within itself does not have harm to it, does not have a negative impact. When we take a look at, for example, natural disasters as we call them, let's say a tsunami. The problem with the tsunami is not that it exists, because it's one of the things that's necessary to keep the earth balanced. When we look at a hurricane, the problem is not that the hurricane exists, right? When we talk about the structure of a hurricane, right? Structurally, scientifically, it involves winds that are coming from Africa that bring over dirt and soil across the ocean. They mix in, they churn up the seas, they move the minerals, they move the soil around, they replenish the seas, they refresh the water. Then when they hit the land, they bring minerals from different locations and deposit them into land. They move the soil out of the way and they refresh the earth. A hurricane within itself, there's nothing wrong with it. It's a good thing. It's a helpful thing. The conflict comes of when it interacts with me and I'm located in a place where the hurricane occurs. Let's say, for example, the hurricane occurred in a desolate place. Would it even make the news? No. It's a natural occurrence. It's good for the environment. It's good for the soil. Same thing with an earthquake or a tsunami. It's something that changes and replenishes the earth and its environment, and it keeps the earth in balance. The same way with a volcano. When we talk about the raising of these gases in the atmosphere and talking about the problem that we have with the earth heating up, a volcano is a natural process through which the earth cools down. That through the ash of a volcano there's natural cooling because it blocks out the sun. So the earth's temperature is reduced by the presence of a volcano on this earth, which is a good thing. The problem I have with a volcano is that it occurs where I am. That shouldn't happen. So when it comes to a natural disaster, our true complaint is not with the existence of that item, that why does it exist? Our problem with that item is why does it exist where it's inconvenient for me, where it creates a conflicting relationship with me. To acknowledge that these things are not designed to isolate one particular individual amongst millions and say, I need to drop something on you and it's going to be a tornado, it's going to be a volcano, it's going to be a hurricane. No. This is a natural occurrence that exists within the earth. The same way we can take a look at some aspects of personal challenges that we face. For example, the mosquito. The mosquito, if it existed and it didn't bother a human being, we wouldn't have a problem with it. The problem we have is that saliva, when the mosquito sits on a human being and it bites a human being, that saliva is something that the body dislikes, and it produces antibodies and white blood cells to go and fight it and causes swelling in the skin, and the skin becomes itchy from that aspect. Meaning the item itself there's no problem with. Its interaction with me is where I have a problem. That its interaction with me is what causes me discomfort. In essence, there's nothing wrong with it. The problem is that it's inconvenient for me. And when we see these questions of these people asking, why did Allah make the tsunami happen? No, the earth, it's a natural entity existent within the earth that occurred. Our process was that we lived in a location where we became affected by that natural disaster. So is it that the earth needs to change when we come into a location? And the earth should not behave the way it does because we are in that location? No. It's an occurrence that can happen at any given point in time. The same way, for example, when we take a look at unfortunate mass accidents that happen. For example, if a building, or look at Chernobyl. It was a miscalculation in the process of how the nuclear plant ran. And as a result of it, there was a meltdown and there was harm that was caused to a number of people. Was it specified to one individual? No. It was an occurrence that happened at a given point in time. With your loudest of salawat, if you can please move forward as well too. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Your second salawat for love of Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And your final salawat to hasten Sahib al-Asr wa zaman. Always remember, don't be stingy with these salawat. Don't be stingy with these salawat. If there's nothing else that you accomplish in your day, this salawat is not something that's initiated by me or you. Allah is telling you, Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. In the same way, for example, that if you love someone, if you have a friend, and I show a kindness to your friend, you appreciate me. If there's your brother, your relative, who's very close to you, is very friendly to you, and I come as a third person and I show him a kindness, you would be happy. You'd be pleased with me. Look at it in the same light that Allah is telling you that this is my Habib. This is my beloved that is here on this earth. And it is someone who I send peace and blessings upon. So imagine the pleasure Allah has with you when you take the time to send peace and blessings upon His beloved. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Inshallah, we'll mention, when you guys slow down and get tired, we'll mention more ahadith and riwayat about the benefit of this salawat as well. When we talk about these large-scale structures and disasters, it's not that the individual is being targeted. It's the consequence of location, that you happen to be in a particular location. Do we believe that it is, intended for one specific individual? No, it's an occurrence that happens. And this is an explanation of some of the philosophers. We'll look at the bigger picture. Now, when we take a look at, for example, that this is one aspect through a large scale that we see sometimes that Allah gives us a test. That our presence there, our association there is nothing more than a test by Allah. It's not a focal point that it's associated necessarily with us, but through this as a wasila, as a way of transmittance, Allah gives us an examination. And it's not that Allah is intending you harm, or that Allah is wanting to punish the people for being there. No, it's a natural occurrence. And it's foolishness to think otherwise. For example, there is recently in the US, with the severity of the hurricanes that you've seen coming there, one professor stood up from a Jesuit college, and he stood up and he says, "This is the punishment of God on the people of Miami." You mean to tell me that the earth moving and its entire structure and its process and the scientific balance that exists on the earth has nothing to do with it, and Allah is intentionally sending a storm off to these people? This is not a structure of punishment. Allah has already told us that He told us that when I sent my Habib, when I sent Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, I held back my judgment and punishment on the people of this earth until the day of judgment, because of the presence of Rahmatul lil Alameen, the mercy for all of mankind, that my punishment will not be sent down to the people, my azab will not be sent down upon the people until the time of judgment comes. So we take a look and we see that this idea that this is a punishment focused on why it hit this region and why these people is foolishness. It does not make any sense. Rather, it's a consequence of the existence of the earth and the conflict that occurs when a natural occurrence happens in a location that's inconvenient for people. It's not meant intentionally for one individual or for that condition. It's a result of how the world operates. When we take a look at, for example, other structures, the one is this main scale, large scale system of examination that shows up. The other one is the small scale or the personal examination that shows up. Sometimes when we talk about, for example, health, we see everybody is fine and all of a sudden I'm struck with a difficulty or a disease or a sickness. Or everybody around me is fine and I'm challenged with something, for example, in my wealth, I lose my wealth. Or I find myself in a state of difficulty. I find that, for example, Allah has tested me through, for example, the loss of family members, the loss of my health, the loss of my wealth. We take a look at these structures and we take a look at these examinations that come to us, and sometimes the first reaction we have, Allah is punishing me. That this is a punishment from Allah. That Allah has designated me as someone who should be receiving of His punishment. This thought process is not healthy. It's not correct. We know that the system of punishment and the system of judgment is reserved for the day of judgment. That rather than to acknowledge it as a punishment, we need to look at it as this is an examination Allah has laid out for me. Now sometimes we wonder to ourselves, we say, why did Allah have to give me this exam? Why did He have to give me this difficulty? Why couldn't He have given me something easier? Why did this have to be my test in life? Allah doesn't test us as a general test. This isn't like college when you step into a classroom and every person is handed the same examination. Allah wants to see your character. How do you respond to those situations that are difficult for you? How do you resolve the difficulties that impact you as a person? Therefore, the examination that you will suffer will be difficult for you, not for society as a whole. We don't want to look at these challenges as punishment because, first off, they're not punishment. It's a challenge. It's a test that Allah has given you. He's already told you that I will test you through all of these means. What's to say that I can't choose or Allah can't choose any of those means? Why do you assume that He wouldn't choose any means to test you to see what is your true faith and put you through a difficulty to measure what your character is like? It's the purpose of a test. To see, can you pass the examination? When the question is difficult, do you make the right selection and the right answer? There is a point to consider though when we look at an examination on a personal level. Sometimes the examination I receive is a consequence of my actions. Sometimes the examination that I am going through is because of choices and selections that I made in my life. There may be certain examinations or certain tests and trials I wouldn't have to go through if I made better choices. Let me give you an example. I'm driving down the road and I have my phone with me and I'm texting my friends as I drive, and in the process I don't pay attention and I run into a pole on the side of the road, or I run into some structure on the side of the road. And I hit this structure. When I hit this structure, now all of a sudden my car is damaged, it's harmed. Now all of a sudden I will have to go through the process of figuring out, how do I first make sure that 1, nothing happened to me, that I'm healthy. 2, how do I get out of here? 3, how do I get my car repaired? How do I continue my day-to-day businesses and processes while I'm going through the aspect of fixing my car? What are the consequences to the damage that I did? Will I be fined by the society? Will I be fined by the government? Will I have to pay for repairs? God forbid if I hit somebody else's car, right? Then I have to worry about was he harmed? Were there any, for example, damages that he suffered that I'll be liable for? Or, for example, I hit somebody's property and their house is damaged. I have to go through all of this process. Now, all of a sudden, I entered into the possibility of 2 or 3 different examinations. Maybe I suffered a loss from myself. My health is damaged now. I hurt my neck. Maybe I lost my wealth. I lost my ability of my sustenance by damaging my car. All of these are examinations that I brought upon myself as a consequence of my behavior and what I chose to do. I chose a path that put consequence before me. Now, sometimes what we like to do is we like to say, oh, Allah, forgive me. Allah, forgive me for the mistake that I made. And Allah has the ability to forgive, but the consequences of that decision don't disappear. It's not like you're going to go at home and ask for Allah's forgiveness and Allah forgives you and you come outside and car is shiny and brand new. And all the damage that was done is repaired and your neck suddenly is perfectly fine and nothing's wrong. No. The consequences of our decisions live on, which is why it's very important that in this day and age, one of the problems that we have to teach our youth about and educate them about is the impact of the consequences of decisions. In a culture and an environment that is constantly focused on what is the quick return and how is the quickest way for me to be satisfied, my pleasure to be fulfilled, sometimes our youth and even us, we don't look past the immediate pleasure. We don't think about the consequences of what's the long-term impact of this decision. What kind of a person will I be? Or what is the next challenge that will face me because of the decisions that I made? Rather than trying to take a look at and see to say that, for example, oh, Allah is punishing me. One of the ways that we take a look at our lives and we take a look and we see that no, some of the decisions that I make have consequences that will bring me to examinations in life that I may not want to deal with. That I should be careful of the decisions I make in life so that if there is an exam Allah was going to place on me because of my behavior, because of my choices, Allah does not place it upon me. And this is a reality that we have to prepare ourselves for and we have to think ahead. We stop thinking ahead. All of these structures of these examinations, the fundamental that we're going through is that we've forgotten what this life is for. What are we doing here? Why are we here? This is where the question of perspective comes in. Is understanding the perspective of what this is that goes over us. Why are we going through these trials and difficulties? The first part that you have to understand in perspective is why did Allah say He's going to test us through all of these things? Doesn't Allah love us? Doesn't He want us to be happy? Shouldn't we have nice, comfortable lives? No. You've forgotten what you're doing here. Allah created this world and put you on this world to see what your character was, to show you who you are as a person, to demonstrate for you that you are worthy of being rewarded or worthy of being punished. This is not Darul Akhirah. This is a short life. There is no pleasure here that's permanent. Everything is temporary. It comes and goes. That there is an item that you have to accomplish on this earth, and that's why you're here. Your goal on this earth is to accomplish and develop a relationship with Allah and to spend your life in worship and closeness and proximity to Him. وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. I did not create jinn and mankind except that they should worship me. My goal in this life is not to be happy and full of pleasure and that this is my heaven and everything needs to be hunky-dory, or the way they show on TV that everybody's happy and they have money and life is good and all this. It's not my goal. My goal in this life is to traverse whatever comes in my way and prevents me or distracts me from my real goal, which is to build a relationship with Allah and have a connection with Him and to fulfill the obligations He put on me, so that through His mercy He may reward me in that permanent abode, in that life that doesn't end, so that I can take benefit and advantage of that life. Now, why is it then that some people have tests in this life and some don't? Why is it that some go through difficulty and some don't? There's a very good book that's written. It's called Kitab al-Mu'min by Husain al-Ahwazi. Husain al-Ahwazi was a companion from our 8th Imam through our 10th Imam. And this Husain, he wrote with his brother Hassan, they wrote together over 30 books. One of these books is referred to as Kitab al-Mu'min. And it's a book that's still available, and it has even been translated into English for you. And you can find it on Al-Islam and online for free. The purpose of this book that Husain al-Ahwazi wrote is to educate you about what it means to be a mu'min. What are the consequences, responsibilities, reality of being someone who is considered a believer? And the first chapter he writes about talks about the idea that a mu'min is someone who spends his life in difficulty. And all it is a collection of ahadith and narrations from the A'immah telling you that you, when you submit yourself to Allah and call yourself a mu'min, expect now that this life to be spent in challenges and difficulties. We see the narration of our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad as-Sadiq alayhi salam. The difficulties and tribulations come to a mu'min the way water gathers around a drain. You know how, take a look at a sink. Think of a sink or a bathtub logically, right? You take a look at a tub or you take a look at a sink logically. How is that item designed? It's designed that should you pour water into it in any location, it comes and gathers at the drain. The functionality of the drain is so that everything is sloped in its direction so that it goes there. Imam is telling you that for a mu'min, difficulties come to him like water goes to a drain. Expect that this life is going to be spent in trials and tribulations and difficulties. That's the purpose of life. That I have to take the exam, I have to answer the questions to get the reward, to pass the exam. So Allah says, I keep the mu'min busy with the exam. Allah says, I keep the mu'min busy with the exam. I constantly bring to him difficulties and tribulations and challenges. And it's not from one aspect. It's not where you think from that you would say, let it come from my financial side. It doesn't bother me if money is difficult for me. Allah says, I know money is not difficult for you. That's why I challenge you at home with your family. I challenge you in society in front of people. I challenge your health. I challenge your relationships. because that's difficult for you. Because when you go through the difficulty, when you are stuck in that trial, you will turn back to Allah and remember Him. And that's our goal in life, to worship Him. So Allah says, those that I love, I keep them attached to myself by keeping them busy in trials and difficulties. So that as they go through that trial and difficulty, they recognize how limited their control is on their own life. Especially here in this country or in countries like this, we think healthcare is not a problem. We have good healthcare systems. We think money is not a problem. There's good jobs that we can have out there. We think that all of these conveniences that we have access to give us control of our environment and of ourselves, that whatever I want, I can attain. And we forget Allah. Allah is saying, no, you can't forget me. If I want you to be close to me, I will keep you busy in trials and tribulations so that you keep turning back to me and remembering me. You keep coming back to me and coming to me for assistance and guidance. So one who professes Iman, one who makes the statement of faith, he shouldn't expect that this life would be easy. Right? We have this assumption in our heads that if I love the Ahlul Bayt and I'm a mu'min and I love Amir al-Mu'mineen and I want to call myself, if not the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the Muhibb of Ahlul Bayt, the Muhibb of Amir al-Mu'mineen, that in my heart is the true love of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Then why would Allah put me in difficulty? I should be amongst the elite of humanity. I should be treated as the best of humanity on this earth. I should walk and flowers should come out of the ground. But that would mean that this is the final abode. Allah says, no, this is a place of testing. Let me put you in difficulty so that when the day of judgment, Yawm al-Qiyamah comes, that at that time you have earned a reward. You have earned a place that would be worthy of one who loves Ali Muhammad. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Which is why the idea is that we have to recognize and see whether the challenge comes through a large-scale disaster or a difficulty that affects all of society. For example, we have many brothers and family members that are in Orlando. They just spent a week without electricity. Everybody, or just about, many people did. That's a large-scale difficulty to deal with. We've become very reliant on energy and electricity. To suddenly go without is very difficult. That's a large-scale difficulty or a small-scale difficulty. That the purpose of that difficulty is not to punish me or is not to attack me, but rather to ensure that when I go through this challenge, I turn back to Allah. I go back to Him and I reconnect with Allah and I recognize that nothing in this life is in my control. That it's in the hands of Allah. He gave me this life and He can take it away. As easily as I'm breathing now, I can stop breathing. As easily as I've made plans for what I will do tomorrow, what's to say I'll get there? That this life is something that is subject to His permission. And that I need to stay attached to Him. Let me not get distracted in these worldly affairs. And let me focus on my purpose of creation. That these difficulties limit us from all of these different challenges and all these different desires that we have. That forget about the car. Baba, I'm worried about my health. I don't care what car I drive. Let me be healthy. Let me ask Allah for shifa'ah. Let me get through this difficulty of myself. Who cares what I drive? You see how Allah removed the worldly affairs from my matters and focused me back on my purpose of creation through this challenge. And Allah is telling you, I'm going to test you. It's a test. How do we pass the test? That's the next question. So once we understand it's a test, once I understand that this is something that I have to go through, how do I pass? How do I go through this examination to ensure that I'm successful? And the first part of it is acknowledging and being aware that it's an examination. You see, sometimes people have a habit of feeling like they're a victim. I feel like a victim. I feel like the world is against me. I feel depressed by the challenges that have been placed upon me. Why? Because I believe that I am being targeted without reason. that there's no particular reason why this happened, but it happened to me and it didn't happen to my neighbor. It didn't happen to my friend. It didn't happen to anybody else. It happened to me. I'm suffering. This idea that I'm suffering and I'm a victim prevents us from even acknowledging there's an examination in front of us. We become so lost in feeling pity and sorrow for ourselves that we forget that I need to accomplish something. Allah wants to see what my character is. Allah is looking to see that do I have my priorities in order? Allah is looking to see what kind of person I am. The first part that we want to understand is that recognize that these are examinations before us, that this is a test. How do I behave in my test is what's going to determine if I pass this exam or not. And then look at the mercy of Allah. He's telling you what you need to pass the examination. Look at this ayah. وَبَشَّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ, and give glad tidings to those who are patient in the face of their examinations. When we take a look at, for example, the idea of what is patience, and that's an entirely large subject, but briefly, right? Take a look at it. We have the hadith of our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As-sabru ra'sul iman. That patience is the head of the body of faith. That if you were to take a look at your faith as an entity, as something that existed outside, something that you could astral project or you could see physically in front of you, and you could look at your faith, you would see that the head of that faith is your patience, is to have patience. When you take a look at, for example, a human being, right? He can survive without a foot. He can survive without a leg. Can he survive without a head? No. That as soon as that head is gone, as soon as that head is broken, as soon as that head is removed, the body fails. It stops working. It stops functioning. It has no benefit anymore. It goes from being a human being to be a lifeless body, a lifeless object, that there is no value associated with it anymore. The same way Rasulullah is explaining in this fashion for us to acknowledge that this faith is this faith is powered, is focused around this patience. That you have to be patient when trials and tribulations befall you. You have to act in a manner that is befitting of someone who wants to pass this examination. Patience, and let's be clear about this, right? Patience is not that I went through it, right? Sometimes, for example, we have a sickness. We fall ill. We develop the flu. Flu season is coming, right? We develop the flu. I get sick. Now for the next 10 days, everyone in my house has to hear about it. I don't feel good. Oh, my body hurts. Oh, if you knew how much pain I'm in. If you knew the difficulty I'm going through. Oh, I wouldn't wish this on my enemy. We complain and we cry and we make 1,000 excuses and talk about 1,000 different ways that, oh, this is so uncomfortable for me. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I can't rest. I can't... Oh my God, it's as if everybody's suffering through a test now. That's not patience. It's not patience when you start complaining about the challenges you're going through and announcing the difficulties that you're passing through. That's not patience. That's just getting by. Patience is when you're in control of yourself. When you're aware of your character and your behavior, when you're not taking out your problem on those around you. Many times what happens is we go through the difficulty. I crashed my car. I'm going to go home and give it to my wife. When my parents call, I'm going to be rude to them on the phone. When I call work, I'm going to tell off my boss. Don't you know how hard of a day I'm having? Forget the boss. Let's leave that to the side. Especially in the case of men. You go home and you give it to the wife. The wife goes through difficulty, she gives it to the kids. What is this process? How is that patience? It's not patience. It's not patience at all. Patience is when you have tahammul, you have the ability to bear a challenge and a tribulation, where you don't take it out on those around you. You don't cause a negative environment just because you have a challenge in your life. You want to talk about application of faith? This is application of faith. That my iman is such that I have trust in Allah, that if He put me through a challenge and a difficulty, I don't have to bring it out on everybody around me. Rather, I acknowledge that this test is for me, and I will be patient and I will show the akhlaq of someone who is worthy of being rewarded by Allah for this tribulation. I'm going to be a good person. People are going to speak to me and they won't even know of the difficulty I'm going through. Because I don't want people to reward me. I don't want people to have mercy on me. I want Allah to have mercy on me. This is patience. This is that acknowledgement. Now, one of the aspects of this, it doesn't mean that you become emotionless. It doesn't mean that you become someone who has no ability to express emotion, that no, I want the reward. No, emotion is a part of life and there are appropriate processes of reflecting that emotion. You want to see one of the greatest tests that a person can feel, and one of the most unfortunate tests that we don't wish on anybody, is the loss of a child. It's the loss of a child, and there is grieving. And people have a right to grieve when they lose a child. And they should be allowed to grieve when they lose a child. Look at, for example, even our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. He had a son, Ibrahim, that was born to Maria Qubti. And that child was someone who passed away in his youth. And there are many narrations that discuss this, but take a look at how we have the ahadith of our Holy Prophet as he mentions, "O Ibrahim, your loss grieves us severely. I am suffering because of your loss, Ibrahim. But Allah will never find us to speak a word except that He is pleased with it." The point is, there's a process to grieve. It's permissible to grieve, but there is grieving and there is the appropriate way of grieving. And that we should be conscientious that when we grieve, we don't make Allah our enemy. That why did Allah do this? Why did He put me through this? Or that I will never be someone who, for example, people who turn away from faith because of the examinations that they face in life. No, it's true. Examinations are difficult. They're very challenging. We don't wish that difficulty upon anyone. But if it comes to us, the idea that we have to acknowledge is that we should not leave the bounds of faith and iman. To cry for someone who's deceased is natural. It's a good thing. It's something that's appropriate for a person to express that emotion. But within a limit, within a process. Many of you have heard of a personality known as Zain ad-Din Shahid al-Thani. Shahid al-Thani is most famous in the Hawza for writing Lumat al-Dimashqiyya, which is one of the major books of the Hawza. This Zain ad-Din, the Shahid al-Thani, wrote many books. One of the books that he wrote is called Musakkin al-Fu'ad, the comforter of the broken heart. The comforter of the heart. Because this Shahid al-Thani, in his life, all of his sons passed away in their youth, except his final son, who was a young boy when he became martyred. Shahid al-Thani, because he lost his children in his life, he had a hard time coping with this loss. And though he was, and that's the point, he was a great cleric in terms of the fiqh and the jurisprudential side, but he also spoke to this community and society, and he wrote this book to help people and teach them, how do you cope with these losses? How do you go through this difficulty of this loss and survive? What is an appropriate way in which you should go through these losses, and how should you get through this process? This book, alhamdulillah, is still available and it's still read. It's still available to people to go to for guidance when you find yourself in a position where you lose a family member. And it's permissible for us to cry and to feel sorrow, but there are aspects of that as well too that we don't publicize, that we keep it to ourselves, that we don't punish society because of our losses. And there are those stoic individuals throughout history who demonstrated the characteristics of how to behave when we associate ourselves with loss. But remember something, going through loss, the reason we can control ourselves is because we have yaqeen, we have certainty that Allah is there to take account. Never assume that you will perform an action and Allah will not give you the credit for it, whether it's the reward or the punishment. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ وَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَةٍ شَرًّا يَرَهُ. That if you even perform an atom's weight worth of good, I will show it to you and you will see it. If you perform an atom's weight of evil, I will show it to you, you will see it. These aspects, this process is telling us that Allah is there to take account. Don't ever imagine that just because society doesn't acknowledge you for your trials and tribulations, or just because people aren't aware of it, that there's no reward for it. That Allah is not the one who is there to compensate you for it. No, our goal, our application, when we make this statement, La ilaha illallah, Muhammadan Rasulullah, Aliyan Waliyullah, Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. That by the basis of this relationship that I'm developing with Muhammad wa ali Muhammad, and through their wasila I'm developing with Allah, Allah has given me a particular status. Within that particular status is the association that yes, I will face difficulty, I will face trials to ensure that I don't get lost in this world, I don't get lost in the ability of focusing on the true examination I have in this life. But also to remember that the application of when I demonstrate this, it's with the yaqeen and certainty that Allah will reward me for that action. إِنَّمَا يُوَفَّ الصَّابِرُونَ أَجْرَهُمْ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah says in Surah Zumar, verse number 10, that certainly those who are patient, I will reward them بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ, without an account for how much they are rewarded for it. And this is the Quran. This isn't someone else speaking that maybe he's telling the truth, maybe he's not. Kalam of Allah, we have no doubt. We're certain. When Allah is telling us and He says, فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُمْ رَبُّهُمْ إِنِّي لَا أُضِيءُ عَمَلَ عَامِلٍ مِّنْكُمْ مِّن ذَكَرٍ أَوْ أُنْثَى. Allah is telling you when He answers and He says that I will never misplace a deed that is performed by any one of you. I will always keep complete account. That which you give in my way can never be lost. That we have to remember the focus, that don't be overcome by your challenges. Don't be overcome by the situation when it presents itself to you or the difficulty. Don't be overcome when the personal challenge comes in your life. That all of a sudden you forget everything, faith, iman, nothing, throw it all out the window. Let me tell this person where he can go stick it. No. Be conscientious. What's the purpose of that challenge? What's the purpose of that conflict? What am I supposed to do? If I could watch myself as a third person in this situation, knowing what I know, would I be pleased with my actions? Would I be satisfied that I fulfill the goal of this purpose? Would I be someone who is worthy of being rewarded for the actions that I am going through? Be objective for a moment before you enter into that situation. Or even in the middle of it, take a moment, take a breath. When you find yourself angry, when you find yourself upset, stop for a moment. Count to 3. Sit down if you need to. If you're sitting, lie down. If you're lying down, take 2 minutes. Go pray 2 rakat of salat before you respond to a person, before you respond to a situation. Take a walk outside. Recite a tasbih. Do something to make you remember that this is not something that is entirely reliant upon you dealing with that one individual. Rather, its focus or the purpose of this is to show Allah that, oh Allah, when I professed iman with my tongue, I placed that iman in my heart. When that iman was in my heart, I manifested it through my actions. Because I have yaqeen, O Allah, that you are present and my actions will never be lost with you. That you will always be there to reward me and acknowledge whatever it is I give in your way. And if you want to understand and see how it is that we give in the way of Allah, and how it is that we should have yaqeen that Allah is the one who takes account and He rewards, when you look to the field of Karbala, you'll see the example professed in the perfect example of the Banu Hashim. But more than that, look at the ashab of this Imam of ours. Imam Husein made a statement. He says, I have been given companions that neither my grandfather, nor my father, nor my brother were given. I have been blessed with such companions. if you want to see what it is to overcome the tribulation and show the character that a person should have, look at the companions of Imam Hussein. Look at the personality of just one companion we'll mention tonight, Habib ibn Madahir. This Habib was not a normal person. You want that Ahlul Bayt should acknowledge you? Look at the example of Habib. There is a narration that shows that Rasulullah was walking in the streets of Medina with Mazahir. And as he's walking with Mazahir, Imam Hussein is behind him, and behind him is Habib. As Mazahir is walking and talking with Rasulullah, Rasulullah stops. He turns, and Mazahir is a young boy. He goes and Mazahir's son, Habib, is a young boy. He goes and he kisses Habib. Mazahir asks, Ya Rasulullah, has my son done something? Is there something wrong? He says, no, O Mazahir, you don't know what I know. Us, the Anbiya, we are blessed with the ability to see behind us the same way we see in front of us. This Habib of yours is a very special boy. He's very special and unique amongst all the people. Mazahir says, Ya Rasulullah, what did this Habib of mine do? He says, as we were walking, Hussein was walking behind us. Habib was walking behind Hussein. And every few steps he would lift the dirt from under the feet of Hussein. And he would kiss the dirt of Hussein. This is the love that Habib had for Imam al-Hussein. That's described by Rasulullah, and Rasulullah shows the distinction of Habib. Habib is not a normal personality. Habib is that one friend that when Imam al-Hussein is alone in the field of Karbala and his companions are few, he writes to this one friend and he sends a letter to Habib. The narrators, they write that when this letter reached Habib, he was at dinner with his wife. When the person knocked at the door, Habib went and received the letter, and then he sat down. His wife asked, who is it from? Habib opened the letter and he touched it to his eyes the way he had once touched the dirt of Imam al-Hussein's feet to his eyes. She says, oh Habib, I see you perform an action that tells me that this is a letter from our master. He has written to you. What has he written? Oh Habib, tell me, what has our master said? Habib replies that Imam al-Hussein, my master, has written to me, my old friend has written to me, and he has told me that he is in a state of difficulty, that he is in a state where he is surrounded by troubles and tribulations, and he has asked me to come to him. So Habib's wife turns to him and she says, Habib, what are you thinking about? Habib says, I'm worried what will happen to you, what will happen to the house, how will our children be raised? Habib is not worried about this. He wants to see the reaction. One mu'arrikh, he writes, one historian, he narrates, he says, Habib's wife turns and she says, you stay home with the children. I am going to Abu Abdullah if you won't go. If you are so worried about these material matters, they are in your hand, Habib. I am leaving. Habib stops for a moment. He says, wait, I just wanted to see your reaction. I wanted to make sure that you are in support of our master. I wanted to make sure that should I leave this earth, our children will be raised with the love of Ali Muhammad, that you will not be turned away from Ali Muhammad. I'm satisfied. There was a curfew in the city of Kufa. Habib could not leave the city himself, so he sent his servant. He said, take my horse to the most outside farm to graze him and keep him there. I will come to you in the middle of the night to take this horse, and I will ride to our master Abu Abdullah. One of the narrators, he writes, he says that it became very late at night and Habib was taking a long time to arrive, where the slave was standing with the horse waiting for Habib. As Habib comes up, he sees that this slave is speaking with the horse. Our master was to ride you to Karbala to the aid of Abu Abdullah. Something has prevented him from coming. Oh horse, if our master does not come, don't worry. I will take you to the aid of Abu Abdullah. We will go if he cannot come. Habib, when he comes, he takes the horse and he says thank you to his slave, and he says, from me you are free now. You have shown your sincerity in our service. I set you free. The slave begins to cry and he says, oh Habib, oh master, when the affairs were easy and it was work for you, you kept me. Now when you present your life in service of Abu Abdullah, you want me to separate from you. I beg you, take me with you to the service of Imam al-Hussein. And Habib takes the slave and he heads to Karbala. The narration to show you the difference of Habib. The difference of Habib is such that one narrator, he writes that when Habib arrives in Karbala, there was army after army that was joining the force of Umar Sa'd. And there was a conversation that was happening in the tents where Zainab turns to Fizza. All of these enemies are coming against our brother. Is there no one who comes to the aid of my brother Hussein? Do we have no friends that someone should come to us and help us? My brother is alone. Will no one come to the aid of my brother? Watch the status of Habib. That's when Habib comes to the encampment and he is greeted by Imam Hussein. The companions of Imam Hussein become pleased. A noise erupts in the encampment of Abu Abdullah. When the noise erupts, Sayyidah Zainab asks, "Oh Fizza, what is the noise? What is the sound that has erupted? Go find out." Fizza returns and she says, "Oh Zainab, oh Sayyidah, Habib has come for the help of your brother Hussein." Sayyidah Zainab turns to Fizza and says, "Oh Fizza, go and present my salam to Habib and thank him from us for coming to the aid of Abu Abdullah." That if you want to see how the status of someone who cares for Abu Abdullah is, Fizza comes and says, "Oh Habib, Zainab sends her salam to you." Habib falls in the middle of the field and he begins to weep. Wa ghurbata, how difficult are the days on Ali Muhammad, that Sayyidah sends salam to one such as me in this situation. That Sayyidah acknowledges me. How difficult is the day on the children of Rasulullah. Habib is a unique personality because one, Rasulullah showed his status. Two, Sayyidah Zainab considered him worthy of receiving the salam. Today when you go to Karbala, you see the grave of Abu Abdullah, and may Allah bless us all with the sight of the grave of Abu Abdullah. You see the grave of Abu Abdullah, you see the grave of the Shuhada, and to the side you see the grave of Habib. Habib is that companion who was put in charge of all of the companions and the supporters of the Banu Hashim and Abu Abdullah. He was in charge of the companions, and some say that his grave is separated so that when you go and you pay your respects, you ask Habib, "Habib, include me amongst those who are the supporter of our Madloom Imam. Oh Habib, ensure that my name is counted amongst those who answered the call of Labbaik to my Imam. Oh Habib, make sure that I am amongst those who was the supporters of Abu Abdullah." Such was the status of the leader of Habib as the leader of the Ashab in the field of Karbala, that the night of Ashura, Nafi ibn Hilal narrates, he says, "It was my job to follow Abu Abdullah and protect him from any attacks in the night, that no one should bring harm to our master in this night that we had. As I followed Abu Abdullah, at one time he went to the tent of his sister. When he went to the tent of his sister, I sat outside and I waited. When I was sitting outside and I was waiting, I heard a conversation where Sayyidah asked her brother, "Brother, the enemy is many. Your companions are few. Have you tested them? Are you sure they won't leave you in your time of difficulty? Oh brother, are these truly sincere companions to you?" The heart of Nafi began to tremble in his chest. He did not know, how do I show that I would sacrifice my life 1,000 times for Abu Abdullah? I would never leave Abu Abdullah, that my life be sacrificed. He didn't know how to respond. He goes to Habib. And Habib sees him in a condition of difficulty. He says, "Nafi, is something wrong?" Nafi replies and he narrates the condition that Sayyidah Zainab is questioning our sincerity to our master. Habib comes out of the tent and he calls, "Oh lions of Allah, come out, come out." When all of the companions rush out with their swords drawn, the Banu Hashim come from their tents. Habib replies, he says, "Oh children of Rasulullah, our lives be sacrificed for you. This matter is not for you. Give us but a moment." The companions gather outside of the tent of Sayyidah Zainab and they call, "Oh Sayyidah, our swords, our spears, our lives, our children, our generations, may they be sacrificed for you. May they be sacrificed on your brother, that we will give everything we have for Abu Abdullah. Don't doubt our insincerity. We love Abu Abdullah and we would give everything for him." Such was the sincerity of Habib that as he sent out companion after companion to fight, he would go and he would himself go. That before Abu Abdullah tries to reach, Habib would try to go. When he reaches Muslim ibn Awsaja and he sees Muslim in his final moments, he says, "Oh Muslim, I am sure to follow you on this day of Ashura. I am right behind you. But do you have any wasiyah that I can pass on for you?" Muslim ibn Awsaja replies, he says, "Oh Habib, sacrifice everything you have for this Hussein. Don't remain alive if Hussein is hurt." Habib says, "Certainly I will fulfill your desire. I will sacrifice everything that I have for Abu Abdullah." Tonight when you raise your hands in matab, tonight when you raise your hands and you remember the morning of Abu Abdullah, ask Habib to acknowledge you as amongst the supporters. Ask Habib to be written amongst those who swore to Zainab that they would be in support of Abu Abdullah. Remain one of those who is steadfast with Abu Abdullah. Shortly after this communication with Muslim, Habib is as well martyred. And Habib is killed in a skirmish. Until all of the companions are gone and Abu Abdullah is alone in the field of Karbala. And he comes out from his tent and he looks to his right, he looks to his left. He says, "Oh, where are you, my supporters? Oh, where are you who promised to be here with me? Where have you all gone, you lions who were there to protect me?" They said that the bodies of the ashab, their love for Abu Abdullah was such, they had been decapitated, they had been stabbed with swords, they had been shot with arrows. They said, "We saw in the field of Karbala the body of the ashab begin to tremble as Abu Abdullah called out to them in the sorrowful tone of one who was left alone, that Abu Abdullah, should Allah give us permission, we would rise again in your support, we would give our lives again for you." وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ على لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين. ماتم يا حسين.